I will open the meeting. And I'm going to read all this text that you guys so helpfully provided. So before we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I'm Patrick Hegel. When I call your name, please confirm you're present and can hear me. So starting with the commissioners, Sandra Brock.
Want me to say something?
What?
Do you want me to say something, or you want me to just recognize here? Sorry.
Sure. Sorry, I'm going back and forth on my. Let me make my windows so I can actually see you guys while I talk. Okay, Alicia Bergeron.
I'm here.
And Jonathan Nickerson.
Here.
And for the staff, Leah Cameron, the agent.
Here.
Samantha Lyon.
Present.
And the anticipated speakers on the agenda, I think we're still waiting for Norman. Was that right?
So it looks like they're on maybe a phone.
Oh, okay.
I asked if they're joining video, but they haven't written back to that just yet. Okay. Trying to figure it out now.
And Jenna Anderson, Grafton Recreation.
I don't see her yet either.
And is that Bert, Eric, and Carl Engvall?
Yep. Yeah, Bert is here.
Okay. So this open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order on March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This order, which you can find posted to the town's website at grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by telephone and video conference via Zoom, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All supporting materials that have been provided to the Commission are available on the town's website as well. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. So same as the last remote meeting we did, I'll cover these ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As the chair tonight, I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. After members have spoken, we will afford public comment as follows. Reading any questions received in advance of the meeting, and we will read real-time comments and questions typed by computer participants in the chat function as well. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And I think that covers all of those details. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of requested continuances. Should we start with action items, Leah, or is there anything else we should jump to first?
Unless you want to take the votes to continue those four first, either way.
Yeah, I guess let's get those out of the way.
Okay.
And just to confirm, I do need to read all of that text, or do?
So it's about a paragraph under each hearing.
Okay.
to open it, and then we'll vote. They'll
Gotcha.
vote to continue.
Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 via Zoom to act upon a notice of intent. Application for Grafton's protection application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit and application for Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw permit for the construction of a 10-lot subdivision at 18 Carroll Road called Abbey Woods in Grafton, Massachusetts. The application is on file and available for public inspection in the Conservation Commission office Monday through Friday from 8:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. So the applicant has requested a continuance to May 5th, 2020. Can I hear a motion for that?
So this is Sandy Brock, and I move that motion to continue the hearing until May 5th, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Alicia seconds. And okay, so this is by roll call. So I'll call your name and you can respond as Sandy,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and that's everyone. So that is unanimous. And that's everyone we have, right? Yes. And I vote yes as well. Sorry. So that motion passes. And I'll move on to the next one. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Act bylaw, and the Grafton Stormwater Management bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will reopen a public hearing on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 via Zoom to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Wetlands Protection bylaw permit, and application for Grafton Stormwater Management bylaw permit for the construction of a 39-lot subdivision at 88 Adams Road called the Ridings in Grafton, Massachusetts. The application is on file and available for public inspection in the Conservation Commission office Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 5th, 2020. Can I have a motion for that?
This is Sandy Brock. I so move to continue the hearing until May 5th.
Thank you. And can I have a second?
This is Alicia Bergeron, and I second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Sandy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Alicia.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes. I'm just going to knock off these other two and continue on this one reading. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 via Zoom to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit, an application for Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw permit for the construction of a mixed-use development at 100 Westboro Road, Grafton, Massachusetts. The application is on file and available for public inspection in the Conservation Commission office Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 5th, 2020. Would anyone like to move that we did that?
This is Sandy Brock. I move that we continue the hearing to May 5th.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
This is Alicia Bergeron. I second.
And I'll do a roll call for those for votes. Sandy,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So that passes. And the final one of these two for continuances, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 via Zoom to act upon an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation and request for determination of applicability for the delineation of resource areas at 124 Rear North Street and 73 Rear Old Westboro Road, Grafton, Massachusetts. The application is on file and available for public inspection in the Conservation Commission office Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 5th, 2020. Could I have a motion for that?
This is Sandy Brock. I move that we continue the hearing to May 5th.
Thank you. And is there a second?
This is Alicia Bergeron. I second.
Thank you. And Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. That motion passes. Should we do the notice of intent for 97 Millberry Street while we're in here?
Yeah, we can give that a try. I'm trying to work on the side here in the chat with them. They're connected and can see us, but they don't have their video or audio. But hold on, because I have a button here that might allow them to talk. Can you guys test that out?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, so go ahead and open that one because we have them here now.
Okay. So pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 via Zoom to act upon a notice of intent and application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit for the construction of a single-family house at 97 Millberry Street, Grafton, Massachusetts. The application is on file and available for public inspection at the Conservation Commission office Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Shall I?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Norman Hill with the firm of Land Planning. And we submitted a revised plan to improve this proposed site. The revisions we've made, first we're showing a smaller house. This is a small 3-bedroom house. It's 24 by 34. And then we made a big change to the 25-foot no disturb zone. This existing site has a lot of gravel surface, and much of the 25-foot disturb zone is currently gravel. And so on our plan where you see those hatches, that's where the site is currently gravel, and we're going to let it grow in. We're going to take out the gravel, put in loam, and let it grow in naturally. So we're going to be restoring all of the 25-foot no disturb zone except nearest the driveway. As the driveway enters the site, about 50 feet in, it crosses a culvert, and there's a seasonal brook that feeds that culvert and goes through that culvert. So the existing gravel is very close to that entrance to that culvert. There's a group of maple trees there, but I went there again this morning, and the existing gravel is just 4 or 5 feet away from that culvert. Now we've moved the driveway as far away as we can. Grafton has a bylaw that says you have to provide 10 feet of landscaping between your driveway and your neighbor's property line. So we moved the driveway over so it's exactly 10 feet from the property line. And we can't move that property line because that's the minimum lot width for that other lot. You have to have that minimum lot width until you get to the minimum setback. And then we hook that property line in so that we could move the driveway away. But I can't move it any further away than I've moved it. Right now it's about 13 feet from that culvert entrance. And my client would like to have 5 feet of grass there. So we're going to end up with about 8 feet of natural vegetation from that culvert. But in that area there, we are going to be within a 25-foot no disturb. It's currently all gravel, even closer than what we're proposing. So we're going to be restoring about 5 feet. And we did apply for this waiver and paid the $50 fee. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
So does anyone on the commission have any questions or comments?
So this is Sandy Brock. So I obviously at the last hearing, we had made some remarks regarding how much of the 25-foot no disturb zone was being disturbed. Obviously, this is a pretty significant revision, and the only thing that's left within the no disturb zone is the driveway. And as the applicant's representative has already indicated, that's mostly gravel at the moment. So I think my biggest concern has been addressed.
Anyone else on the commission have any comments on this one? Hearing none, I would open this up for any public comments, if there's anyone out there.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay. So is there anything we have to vote on for this one tonight, or is this just for,
So you have the waiver request, and then one comment that I had was just the commission should specify, we had talked last time a little bit about fencing or boulders along the 25-foot no disturb. So it should just be specified how you want that to follow a no disturb area around that driveway and how you want that to look.
oh, that's right.
I can bring the plan back up as well.
My client would be willing to put boulders or a fence. I had mentioned a 5-foot strip of grass along the side of that driveway. You could run the fence right along that 5-foot, right on the outside edge of that 5-foot strip of grass. And then up to the 25-foot no disturb.
So this is Sandy Brock. I would suggest a potential language of based on the submitted plan or the submitted revised plans that an observable barrier be installed, i.e. stockade, some sort of fence, boulders or other feature that's observable to delineate the 25-foot no disturb and the limit of disturbance into the 25-foot from the driveway, or to some effect of that.
Thanks.
Okay. So are there any other comments on this? Or do we just need to move to grant motion voting on the waiver?
I would suggest asking for a motion. Well, why don't I do it? I'll make a motion that the Conservation Commission approve the waiver based on the submitted revised plans for, reducing the 25-foot no buffer as shown on the plans.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second. Sorry, I was talking but muted.
Thank you. I'll go down the roll call for a vote. Jonathan?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion passes. And
So again, this is Sandy Brock. Just wondering if, other than that, that's a waiver and that's a condition. Is there any other conditions staff had looked at for this particular project other than our standard conditions?
I don't, other than the one that I thought of tonight was on the other lot, we had asked for soil testing. So do we want to echo that over here?
I would think to be
Or-
consistent, I would think to be consistent, that's a good idea.
Okay.
That would be fine.
I have no further comments on this.
Um, okay. Is that it for this one? Or I'm trying to read.
So
Oh, you-
I'll make a motion that that we approve this notice of intent.
Oh.
Or issue, excuse me, I make a motion that we issue an order of conditions that includes the special conditions we discussed, one referring to the no disturb zone, and the second one is being consistent with the abutting property and require soil testing for this site.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Go down for roll call. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well.
Thank you all very much. Would you have a minute now to discuss the Chiarella request? The Chiarellas would like to build a bigger house than what was approved for their lot. We submitted a revised plan in hopes that we could get
So
permission.
that's our third action item, 29 George Hill Road.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can jump to that now.
Oh, excellent. So the commission had issued an order of conditions on this, and we had designed a house. It was 28 by 38, and they'd like to build a bigger house than that. And in order to do that and still keep away from your 25-foot no disturb, we had to move the house further up the hill. As you go up to the hill, the wetland goes to the right, away from the house. And so we positioned the house further up the hill and provided the siltation controls and have the driveway sort of zigzag up so it's not steep, not too steep. It's about 8%. And we were able to maintain a 25-foot no disturb.
So it's a little difficult to show you guys both at once, but this was their former plan. So the house is here. And then this is the new proposal. So it's bigger, but further up the hill. They're still maintaining the 25-foot no disturb.
So this is Sandy Brock. So my understanding of, this is not a public hearing and the applicant is requesting a minor change. And so the commission can either, so you can approve it administratively, or you could require a new public hearing or require a new notice of intent. This looks like a minor change because they are maintaining the 25-foot no disturb. I don't know if anyone else have any comments or questions on this change.
I don't. This is Patrick. If we say that if we're saying it's a minor change, is that just an administrative thing?
Yeah, so we would just vote on it and then it would be noted in, I don't know, Leah, if you even send a notification of the minor change.
Yeah, I send a letter.
Okay, so it's done through a vote and during during this part of the meeting where it's more informal and it's for informational stuff.
Mhm.
Would you like a motion?
I would if there's no other comments out there. And I hear none.
I move that we approve a minor change for 29 George Hill Road, where the houses will be larger than the initial application. However, that they shifted the house to still maintain the 25-foot no disturb.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. And Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just say that 9 times out of 10, my client will just, not my client, but most contractors will just build a bigger house in a different location and not tell you. And I'm very pleased that my client brought this to you and got your approval before he started. I told him, I said, you know, you start, you could get shut down and that would be very expensive. So we always encourage people to come back. And when you've got a board like yours, where people are understanding and reasonable, it's the right way to do things. So thank you. And stay well, all of you.
You too.
Thank you. You too. Okay. Well, looks like we have a few things in action items.
So there's 2 things that we have people, or that I know we have people in attendance for,
Okay.
depending on which one you want to take next. One of them is the second action item, which is the request for certificate of compliance for High Point Estates. The other is the discussion on 93 North Street, potential conservation land donation.
Right. Okay. Should we try to do the High Point Estates one first, or?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'll share my screen here for a second. So if you guys are familiar at all with High Point, it's over by the Pike off of, I forget the name of that road. Adams, off of Adams Road. It's been ongoing for a few years now. And they had a couple shots in the past where they gave us plans, as-built plans, and they had a punch list left, mainly through the peer review process with Graves Engineering. The latest round of as-built plans they submitted were reviewed by Graves. 2 letters were issued, one about the plans specifically, one about subdivision completeness. All the conservation relevant concerns have been addressed at this point. I also went back through the order and the conditions, and I did not see anything outstanding. They still have a few items they are working through under their comprehensive permit with the ZBA, but everything specific to us was all set. We have a few people in the just attending and watching, so if you want to give them a minute, if they have anything they'd like to type or ask, and then whatever you guys have.
Mm-hmm. So we will give a few minutes for, if there's any public comments out there, please get them into us.
And the as-built plans are in Dropbox if you guys want to pull them up. It's just kind of hard to show multiple sheets at once, sharing the screen.
Mm-hmm. So not seeing any comments from the public at the moment. Do we have any comments from the commission? Comments, questions, concerns?
This is Sandy Brock. I have no comments or questions.
There is a comment, question in the chat from Robert Aberg. Is this the last step before they turn over the open space parcel?
So we would actually need the owner or his representatives to speak to that. I don't know what the current state of the open space. I know we had looked at it a couple times in the past. We had documented some encroachments, which they've been working on addressing. I don't know what their plans are to date for the open space. That's more of a piece that they work on directly with the ZBA under the comprehensive permit.
Mm.
So you have a couple more chats.
Raise my hand. I'm not sure what the raising hand function is in Zoom.
So if you have your participants up, you can see that it'll say one attendee has raised their hands, and usually there's a little hand that comes up next to it.
I see that.
So I can
So
I can click allow to talk, or we can have them type.
I believe that's a representative from the client, potentially. Then I would be in favor of allowing him to give an answer if he has one.
Okay. Patrick, can you hear? Well, you're muted, but I clicked that you can speak now.
Can you unmute him?
Oh, I think he's in.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just out of curiosity, can you see me as well?
No. At least I
No,
can.
okay. All right, so I can get away with anything I want to do while I speak to you. Okay. Yeah, I've done 3 or 4 Zooms at this point with public hearings, and they're awkward because sometimes you're visible and sometimes you're not. Anyway. Yeah, I'm the wetland scientist who has been involved in this project since its beginning. And we initially came to the commission with a COC request, I think 2 years ago. And the commission wanted to defer action until we had worked through the as-built, which we have successfully done at this point, as Leah noted. The applicant's intention is to pass the open space on to the town. Since we've been involved in this process, we've really been looking for guidance from the town itself, either the zoning board or the commission, about what entity within the town would be most appropriate to sort of take over the space. And Peter Ignorani, the owner's reaction throughout this process has been that he is open to whatever the town suggests. And I think at this juncture, there hasn't been a definitive suggestion, but we're willing and eager to go through that process, whatever it is.
So this is Sandy Brock. I would suggest that Leah reach out to the ZBA to find out what their thoughts are on this, and see if we can move it along to get some sort of conclusion to it. I don't know off the top of my head on what town entity is going to take over the property.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth discussing whether it should be the commission itself or the town of Grafton, and I think it's just been sort of left open, and we're looking for the town's guidance. But either way, we can move quickly on that issue once there's a consensus within the town about who should control that.
Okay. Leah, do you have any more information on that, or?
If it's open for discussion and you guys are interested in it being Conservation Commission specific, it does abut Hennessy, and several
Okay.
of the trails go right up there, if not connect right to it.
Okay. I certainly, as long as it's adjacent to our open space, then I would be interested in doing it. If it's not, then I would have a kind of a different opinion. But if it is, I would think that the Conservation Commission would have an interest in it. I would just make sure that the town or the ZBA has no other other thoughts on who should have the open space.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is Pat again, and just to confirm, we do directly abut Hennessy through probably a couple thousand feet. And several of the trails on the Hennessy property do directly come into the trail system on the open space on High Point as well. So that would make sense and probably be the easiest thing for all parties.
Mhm.
Patrick, it looks like you have some more comments from Robert Aberg.
Okay, I'm reading them now.
Yeah, I meant Patrick.
Yeah, Robert Iberg is noting that the conservation has Hennessy, and in the chat, he's noting that the Conservation Commission has Hennessy, and the open space holds the Beaver Lodge. So the land trust, Grafton Land Trust, is in favor of the Conservation Commission holding the deed, so that there's a unified stewardship plan for the entire field and wetland system.
Yeah, and I confirmed that the Beaver Lodge that they're talking about, if you're familiar with the property, when you enter the road system off of Adams Road, there's a pond on the left-hand side, and there's a Beaver Lodge on the back, the left-hand corner of that pond, and that's what they're referring to, and that is part of the open space.
Okay. I mean, to echo Sandy's comments, it does seem to make sense if the town doesn't have a different opinion that it be a unified system.
So if I can just cut in for a second, the thing we're being asked to vote on tonight is the certificate of compliance. I believe if I'm going to check with the ZBA as you guys asked to see if there's any other thoughts other than us taking it. But if we were to take it, I think they need to come back with plans and, or a deed or a CR or whatever the mechanism is for us to formally accept it. I don't think it's just a matter of talking about it.
Right.
Yeah, I think tonight all we're doing is responding to a question from the public, and I agree. We're just really dealing with the COC right now.
Yeah, and this is Pat again. I don't think we would not be in favor of going through the CR process only because of the time involvement, and as you guys know, it's a local issue, and then it becomes selectmen, and then it goes into the state, and everything is moving very, very slowly with the state. So that process could take 9 months or a year to work through, and there's identical protection afforded by the commission itself taking the property. So I think in terms of simplicity and expense, we would put our hand up for the commission taking the property.
In terms of the certificate of compliance, were there any other comments on that specific item from the commission or public?
I haven't seen any from the public.
Okay. If not, do I have a motion?
This is Sandy Brock. I'll make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance.
Do I have a second?
This is Alicia Bergeron. I second.
And Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Okay, so this is Pat Garner again. Thank you very much. We are available, Leah, to work with you in any way that would facilitate dealing with this open space issue as well.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So I think the other one we have people here for, you said, Leah, is 93 North Street.
Correct.
Okay. And where are we at with that one? I know we
we had discussion last time about the soil test results. And then you guys had concerns about the levels of lead and arsenic that were in the soil. And didn't find it acceptable as is due to risk to the public. So I reached out to the family. The three brothers are on here. Jen Anderson is on here from the Recreation Department. I believe she had a commissioner joining as well, who might be one of our attendees, whose name I don't recognize because I'm not familiar with her members' names. But we just wanted to get everybody together to discuss if there's a way to move forward. I had just thrown out some questions to Bert after our last meeting about if there was any potential to maybe redraw the property line so the town wouldn't take ownership of certain parts, if they would have any desire to fence it off, because the concern is, can children get over there and play in the dirt? So I had asked those questions, they've discussed as a family, and we're all back to discuss together.
Okay. Did someone from the family want to address any of that, or did you guys have anything specifically that you already talked about? I mean,
I haven't heard their feedback about those questions. So if you feel like that's a good place to start, we can start there.
So this is Sandy Brock, and I just want to kind of preface this discussion is to, you know, to let you know that we really appreciate it, and we were kind of touched that your family wanted to donate this. But as you know, as representatives of the town and trying to do our due diligence, we want to make sure we're balanced. We wanted to find out, obviously, being orchard and the unfortunate kind of history of typical orchards and so forth, of having potential for contamination, that the town didn't acquire a liability without their eyes open. And so our recommendation to the selectmen was sort of, we had concerns. However, we just didn't want to say, no, we shouldn't take the property because we're very interested in it, but we want to do it with our eyes open. And I think that's where Leah led up to kind of reaching back out to you. We also want to be very cautious that we also don't want to create an issue for you, the family, about any kind of other potential contamination, because we don't want anyone to spend money that they shouldn't have to spend, but we want to just make sure we do it in a balanced and fair way for everyone. And again, just thank you for offering the property. We just want to make sure that we give the town and the selectmen the appropriate information to make an informed decision, and which is why accepting it as is a potential liability issue. But then again, we want to make sure that you're involved in that discussion and that process. And is there some way around that to allow the town to still accept it, but to have a balanced approach to any potential liability on the site? Hopefully that didn't muddy the water and try to, again, it's a little bit of a tricky thing. Like we did some testing, but we want to do too much testing because of what we could find also.
Right, yeah, I guess I'll start. First, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight with you folks. Unfortunately, we just received the test results from the soil test this morning, so we really haven't had a chance to look through them in depth. My brothers and I will be, my name's Eric, I'm sorry, by the way. This is my wife, Deb, and my two brothers, Bert and Carl. So we'd like to have a little bit of time to digest those results, having just got them, and discuss them amongst ourselves. I guess you mentioned a balanced approach. What were your thoughts on that? What would a balanced approach look like, I guess?
So and I'll certainly entertain kind of comments from other folks. So to me is the first question we have to ask is we've done some preliminary testing. Is there any value to do any more testing without, and then getting a little bit more. I know we were going to ask the expert that we had do the testing if they could give us more information about the uses and so forth of that property. And so to me would be either to what Leah had asked about, is it not the whole site that we accept, or is there some sort of, and this gets into this is out of my expertise, to have an allocation of risk based on what may or may not be found. If nothing's ever found, there's no risk. But if someone goes out there and finds, and not that I'm saying this is happening or there is out there, you go out and find buried drums or something, and the town doesn't want to acquire the risk of having to clean up something like that. I mean, the lead in arsenic is something that everyone kind of expected, but it's is if there's anything else out there, and you probably don't know it either, but it's that balance of how much testing and having an acceptable acceptance of what's there and who's responsible if something is found and has to be cleaned up.
Mhm. I will let you know that in the short time we did have, we've been working with John Higgins from Higgins Environmental. He's also a licensed site professional. We sent the results to him, and his assessment was pretty much in line with the risk assessor associated with Scott Parker, in that with that level of contamination with lead and arsenic, that probably about the best use for that land would be passive recreation or open space, wildlife preservation. And those are really our main goals in preserving the property. We wanted to do it for as long of a time as possible. So we were, had in mind the conservation restriction to prevent any sort of activities on the property that would, get into more of those hazardous types of activities.
And I think that was one of the things that we were really kind of looking for is, you've got, when we were talking about this, we've got 5 volunteers and staff, and no one here is LSPs. And when we look at the numbers, we can't, or we can tell that it's higher than allowable. And so that assessment, I think, is key. And that's not something I guess I'm personally willing to say yay or nay to, but I think it's the experts that we need to rely on.
I think hi, this is Deb Holden-Engvall. In talking with John today briefly, and again, it all came in just today, and that we weren't able to really, he wasn't able to fully, give it the attention that he could. But one thing that he said is that the results were pretty consistent with orchard use. And if we think about New England, in the New England's history of apple orchards and farming, he said, if you can think about a whole lot of housing developments that have gone in where old apple orchards have been before, and that's actually a higher exposure to risk than open space and passive recreation type of thing. So that was just kind of a broad generalization where he was saying the exposure to risk is, more minimal because of the use of it at this point.
I guess I'd like to have the representative from the Recreation Department to kind of weigh in on this discussion. And I think what we need more of is more information and kind of that expertise of giving us information of what the risk actually is versus, us just a bunch of non-experts in lead and arsenic reading numbers that we really don't understand. So Jen?
Yeah, I mean, before I address that, I wanted to comment where we were before and maybe summarize to the Engvall family
what those results mean and reiterate it to the Conservation Commission. I mean, those tests and the concerns are really only in one portion of the 17 acres that they're considering. I think we determined that the rest of that land would be about 9 acres, which is still a substantial amount. So one, I don't know if it's just something we work around with those parcels and avoid them completely. Leah thought that there would be an opportunity for us to still enter the property by cells, after cells 1 and 2. I have to pull it up and go down and access the rest of it. So I just want to make sure people are understanding that we're not looking at this whole property with these levels. It's just these 3, 4, 5, 12, 13, 14 cells that where the orchard were, where those levels were, elevated, but obviously consistent with the use. I know the Conservation Commission also has concerns about the drums. I think in cell 8 that we don't know, what existed. The family has said they were empty when they were put out there and such. But whether it's a different type of boardwalk that we, can walk, get along the edge of 3, 4, 5 and go along the border and get around these cells, or we cut down in by cell 14 there to access the rest of the property, and just looking maybe at the bigger scope of it. Again, I don't know, Engvals, if you've determined the the property line of what's going to be included in that farmhouse, but thinking if that were part of what the mediation would be, so we could have access down to the right of that cell 14 for the rest of the parcel, or if the commission, Conservation Commission would, like I say, I don't know, I'm throwing it out there as can we just work around it? Can we do a boardwalk to get around these cells and access the rest of the lot? And like I said, just remembering that we still have a huge other opportunity with the rest of the site. And so if there's a way that between all of us, we can figure out how to leave those questionable cells untouched or fenced off, or not part of the donation, then I just wanted to make sure we were having that conversation.
So just to echo what Jen just said, I brought the plan up, and there's this whole back area down here as well that is kind of cut off when you're showing this. But all the woods down here is the remaining 9 acres.
Is that part of the potential donation, Leah?
Correct. So if I could lay these two things on top of each other, this blue is everywhere that was sampled. And if that was to be here, it would be 1 and 2 here. And then all the other squares are here, with the lead and arsenic high in the middle here. And then the drums are in the back corner. So
as part of this,
1 and 2 are all right. The back is all right minus the drums, and then this area.
Okay.
In terms of lead and arsenic.
Well, I'm sorry to barge in. I can comment on the drums and back that Leah was mentioning. I think it's in, I have a light box here, I can't see, cell 8, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
My dad was a big fan, and you can look this up on you can look this up online, of 2-barrel SOTZ, SOTZ wood stoves, and he bought more than a lifetime supply of barrels in order to have his replacements. He would get them empty. None of us are robust enough to move them full by any means, and he realized that he didn't want to burn wood anymore. So he brought the old barrels from the wood stoves and the barrels for the potential wood stoves up to the back corner. So I went up there to look at them. All the barrels were rusted out, and they were full of rainwater they went up there empty. They have been removed. And I know that there's concern about other debris buried in the property. As was mentioned by some of the commissioners, I can't tell you what happened 100 years ago either. But I know in my 61 years of life, I am not aware of anything that has been buried there at all, any trash at all. All equipment work happened down in the area of the house and the barn. All the buildings are clustered together. So there is nothing other than the soil test results and the concern about the debris in the back, which is being removed over the next few days and will be gone soon. So hopefully that allays some concern about the drum issue. Regarding the lead and arsenic, as many of you have said, that's not a surprise to any of us. It all based on the history of the use of the property. And as Deb pointed out, that there are hundreds throughout New England of former apple orchards that are now growing houses instead of apple trees. And I'd imagine the disturbance caused by the creation of those home sites is much greater than what would be produced by by passive recreation on the property here. So I will mute again and let.
Thank you for that. Well, are there any other comments from the commission at this time?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I just think it's really like, since both sides ultimately want a similar outcome, it's just how to get there. And I think it's what's the best way to get there and to make sure that the town is comfortable with the, the risk and so forth. And I'm wondering, just to kind of move this, I know that you have not had a whole lot of time to look at the information that we have. What's the best way to kind of proceed to get a resolution, and whether that's the town putting a specific proposal to you guys, or you actually coming up and, I don't know, trying to figure out the best way to do it. And again, I'm not an attorney, and it's just trying to figure out that balance of coming up with, having the town to make sure they're comfortable accepting the property, and whether or not it's the entire property or a portion of that property. I guess that's maybe one question, and I don't know if you are prepared to answer that, since you have just gotten all this information today.
This is Eric again. I'd say we're not prepared to answer it at this point. One thing I would ask, though, since I do have the floor, is I understand that Scott is in the process of looking for attraction for the reporting that he did to the Mass DEP. I'd like to propose that John Higgins from Higgins Environmental be in discussions with him during that process as our representative, since it is our property.
And I would appreciate any additional information. We're just trying to make an informed decision, so.
Do you have contact info you'd like me to get that to him, or put them in touch with each other, or should I do that through Bert?
What?
We can provide this.
Yeah, we can provide, Leah. I'm assuming that's Leah saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can provide you with John Higgins' contact information.
Okay.
I think if I could just summarize maybe like the 4 questions, I think 2 for Concom and 2 for the family, and whether everyone is prepared to answer that now or not. But I think just to summarize, so I mean, for the family, I think it's the consideration of whether those 9 cells could be separated from the donation, or access could be provided between the existing farmhouse and that cell 14 for us to access the rest of the property. And then for the commission, you know, if you would, one, feel comfortable if you know, the donation still consisted of the entire property and would be comfortable with the workaround that maybe could happen with those cells in question. Like I said, whether it's a you know, built on top boardwalk, or we just close it off or whatever, and you'd be comfortable with still moving forward with the entire thing, and or if you're still in favor, if you would still obviously be in favor of accepting it with the other possibility of us getting access from the other side of the property and not having the rest of those cells part of the donation. So I just wanted to clarify, if you can give the family direction as to 1 or 2 options that you would be comfortable with for them to pursue, so we can move forward this. I mean, we're obviously got more time to discuss this because town meeting has been postponed, but you know, the family would obviously like closure on this, and the administration, town administration would like you know, opportunity to close this so we can get it to the select board and again in time for town meeting. And it's been a while since these guys have obviously come to us with this, and obviously we've just got we're working on newer information as we speak, but just trying to clarify where the commission stands with how it is, with either things that we can maybe do, and I don't know if those are things that we can or that you're comfortable with. Like I said, the boardwalk, I'm just throwing out ideas, or if you like either one of those proposals to move forward with accepting it.
So this is Alicia. So I have a question, and Sandy, you might know more about this than me. If we were to do a boardwalk and post signs that said, please stay on the boardwalk, would the, or I mean, we may have to ask someone legally about it, but so if we were to do a boardwalk and post signs asking people to please stay on the boardwalk in that particular area, would the town still be liable if someone were to go off the boardwalk and have like a lead exposure from being in the soil?
Yeah, I would not even venture to guess in our world and what people will and will not do. And it's, you know, is it a real risk or is it really just an opportunity? I really would like to rely on the experts in their risk assessment, and really, to be quite honest, I'd rather see the town take the entire parcel.
Right. That's
as long as,
if you were to do a boardwalk and potentially put signage up requesting that people stay on the boardwalk, so that if someone were, I mean, because our big, or my big thing at least, was exposure to particularly children to the lead in the soil, because they get tested for it and it can hinder their development, and it can be really bad. So if we were to do a boardwalk in that particular area and then have signage indicating, you know, please stay on the boardwalk or don't leave the boardwalk, that sort of thing, so that people weren't picnicking and playing ball and doing other things in the area where there was that issue in the shallow soil, then I think that could be a good solution, just as long as, you know, the other concern is if someone were to have an exposure, would they hold the town liable?
And I'll throw in too, sorry, Sandy, I don't mean to, but just a reminder as well that that whole area, Leah, correct, in the family is very invaded with bittersweet, right? So, yes. You know, if we built that boardwalk and if it was whatever, we somehow, whatever, it'd be basically forced to stay on that boardwalk. There really is not an opportunity for them to venture out in there as is. We would be clearing the path for that as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say instead of signs and so forth, sometimes the best thing to do is put a vegetative barrier. You know, prickers work really well to keep people on trails. And not that I'd love to see invasive bittersweet out there. That's not a good solution. However, I think when you get into that next step of how to reduce potential risk is, I think there's a lot of, you know, even not doing a boardwalk, just doing a hard paved area with vegetation on each side is going to be more effective than a sign.
Yeah.
But then again, I would leave that more to a little
Yeah,
bit more
I think
experts.
sign just from like a risk, like a legal standpoint, if you have a
Yep.
sign, someone is disobeying the sign, then they're taking it into their own hands basically. But yeah, I think that could be a good solution, and then the town would be able to use the whole property.
So I think that the one thing I did hear today from Eric is that you know, we can get the experts together and to get a kind of consensus on the risk. And so you know, we ultimately don't approve or the actual you know, conveyance of this property, but what we do is make recommendations to the selectmen. So we want to do that with as much information as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to rely on the expert opinion that we get rather than, I mean, I'm certainly a layman when it comes to any of these numbers that are out there. So, I mean, I think relying on those experts, I'll be comfortable with some sort of plan as long, you know, ultimately, like we've said, it's up to the town and how they want to treat the liability and address that, or up to the selectmen.
So I mean, just to confirm though, Eric, you said you've had your own assessor, review Parker's findings, or are you doing your own findings? Is that, Sandra, what we're looking for, is for them to confirm or add to?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of really what I'm looking for, is to have an expert say to me, you know, I think we all understand orchards have this type of contamination. What I have no clue on is when I look at the numbers, I don't understand what those numbers mean. So if you have people that work in this field and that's their professional, you know, opinion, sorry, that would be a cat. But anyways, but I'd like to rely on their opinions, and I think that's something we can get behind. I just don't want to be, that to me is the information I need to say, yeah, we can recommend this, or no, we shouldn't do this, or we can do this. And so having the two experts talk would be great. And then even maybe asking them if they can suggest kind of ways to deter, you know, potential issues with that relatively small area that has the higher lead and arsenic.
Right, and yeah, when I was proposing that John talked with Scott, it was based on the existing report and the existing findings that we have in hand now. And also regarding, you know, any liability that we may be taking on, or the town for that matter. And also to walk with Scott through the whole retraction process from DEP to make sure that goes smoothly on our behalf.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. That's, yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of, that's where I'm at and so forth.
Yeah.
And I just want to be transparent so people know what's going on, and that all the decisions are done, you know, kind of balanced and thoughtful with the information that's appropriate. That's all.
Do you think, Sandra, though, I just wanted to clarify. So, I mean, you know, Scott Parker gave us a pretty good, I think, you know, answers to our original questions that addressed a lot of our concerns. So are you looking for John Higgins to,
I'm looking for that.
Or, so we have a second.
I think having a second opinion is great. I'd like to see it in writing with their signature on it.
Okay, I just want to clarify if that was, the assessment we were still looking for, if we were talking about trying to, hire someone else, which probably wouldn't be,
No, unless they recommended to do more testing, to me, I'm going to leave it to them. But what I guess is, yes, we got the results, but and then you guys had a conversation with the LSP and he gave his assessment, which seems, pretty balanced. My big thing is I'd like to see that written and have them sign off on it. Is kind of what I'm looking for, is that formality, so that can be part of the transaction.
So I have a question, or kind of a twofold question. Bert, it sounded like you said that the drums and things are now going to be removed, so that won't be there anymore. And then for the commission, are the drums and, the area they were in no longer a concern? Are we just now concerned with the lead and arsenic?
I will answer first. Since I got question one, I will jump in, and I'll add a couple other comments as well since I have the floor. First of all, the drums are being removed since they were just only being used for wood stoves, were obtained empty by my dad at his high school he taught, and they were full of rainwater, so they have been removed. And that, you had mentioned transparency, Sandra, and I think from the beginning, the family's been made a great attempt to be transparent as well. For example, when Leah, Jen, and the gentleman from the cemetery division walked the property, I mentioned the pile of quote unquote junk off in the corner. And I said, instead of trying to look at it in the hypothetical, why don't we go lay eyes on it so you can see what it is? And so we've been trying to be transparent, and apparently you are as well, which doesn't surprise me. And I'm pleased to hear that. Also, I like the idea, and the family is incurring expenses with this as well, which is fine with us. As you mentioned, Sandra, to get more expert opinions to have, because let's be honest, Scott Parker and Parker Environmental is representing the town of Grafton, which makes sense. You folks in the town of Grafton hired him. I think it's important for the family to have representation too. So we will plan to do the same, as Eric mentioned. And again, we're incurring expense doing that. We're incurring expense removing the junk, so the land is easier to accept as is. And I'd like to think that all parties are being transparent, and this is being evidenced tonight as well at the meeting. And Jen, I like your idea of trying to avoid the area as well. And a few of you mentioned there's no shortage of invasives up there. I think people would be taking their lives into their hands if they leave the boardwalk. I think there's plenty of multiflora roads up there, plenty of prickers. So I think people would stay literally on the straight and narrow.
And Sandra, for the Conservation Commission, do you think there's any consideration for it accepting the land as is and without pursuing it just to preserve it, or any presenting that to the town and the family? I don't know if you can comment on this, but if we were not to accept the donation, what would be happening to that property going forward?
Again, I'll repeat what, and it's not to be repetitive or redundant, Jen, and to ignore your question, but since we only received the soil test results today, we still want to discuss as a family what we would do with the land. But if I remember the beginning of this Conservation Commission meeting, there were plenty of, if I remember, the first 3 out of 4 continuances involved building subdivisions in Grafton. It seems like there's no shortage of housing opportunities in the town.
Yeah, and I think it's, I think there's a lot of different potential solutions. I would like to have it as simple as possible, and I appreciate, the family actually, trying to fulfill their mother's wish and actually putting their wallet behind their kind of commitment to do that. And I think we were trying to do the same when we actually hired someone through the Conservation Commission. Again, I think if we do it as a partnership, we'll get to a solution, but we need to kind of continue to be kind of upfront and the kind of the big hiccup is just we want to make sure we're not acquiring a risk on behalf of the town, so that they end up having to deal with something. And then again, on your part is to have it done in such a way that's that makes sense, and that we rely on information and and expert information. So I think we're going down the right path, and if we get the experts kind of together, and then we can, if we have to have a portion of the area be just because of vegetation, we just have to be careful on the town side that, something's not done in 10 years or 20 years down the road or something, but that's on us to do that. So, but hopefully that gives us kind of next steps to go and follow up and have a conclusion without, going through. That's not a good view. Sorry, that was not a good view. But yeah, but I think I want to keep this on a an honest level, and I think we both have the same goal, and let's see if we can get it done. But let's do it with our eyes open.
There's a few comments in the chat. I don't know if we saw. Do we need to read any of those or address them?
So this is kind of up to you, because this is an informal part. It's not an official public hearing. I think it would be probably good to continue the transparency and go through the people who've made comments and just kind of let people know what they're saying.
Okay, there's been a couple comments from Kristen Remillard from 17 Old Westboro Road, and there's several comments there, but I think that she is saying she understands precaution, but thinks that it would be a mistake for the town to pass up this land. It's an amazing opportunity, and continues to say that the land is better off as a gift to the town rather than to be sold to a developer, and thanks the family for their generosity. And Robert Aberg also notes a link to the 2-barrel wood stoves, and he believes that impervious pavement is an allowed option, which is a lower cost to the town initially and lower maintenance cost. So just it looks like a couple comments, and if there's any other comments from the public, now's the time to get those out there as well. I certainly echo the and appreciate the generosity of the land, potential land donation, and hopefully we can keep it moving along, like Sandy has said.
And this is Eric again. Just want to confirm the date of your next meeting is on May 5th.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. What specifically would you like to see from us at that meeting?
So I think if we can get the two experts together and have some sort of, either a joint letter form or individual letters outlining the risk and giving us kind of what we've heard tonight and what we heard from our LSP originally is that there's a that this type of contamination is, you know, it's common and so forth, but more importantly that the levels are not extreme or whatever the wording they want to use, in that an open space type of use is acceptable, and it would be actually a good use for that property based on that level of contamination.
Okay.
And I guess we had viewed the meeting that was held on the 7th, I guess.
Yep.
And I believe that Scott Parker had consulted with a risk assessor, and Leah had provided that information that he felt
Right.
that that was the lowest risk use
Yep.
for the property. Is that something that the town would be willing to pay for Scott to get that expertise? You know, for his risk assessor, given his results, I guess.
So it was Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a conservation who paid for the testing out of our funds. And
It actually came out of the town administrator's
Okay.
professional and technical.
So again, if we're just talking about getting that kind of written documentation, we can check with the town, but I would think that would be something we'd want to continue with on our end to pay for that type of final, you know, that final kind of letter. I'm looking for the documentation. I'm an engineer. I have to sign stuff all the time. So I understand that, you know, going through this process, we just want to have that documentation. And I know that Leah had talked to the LSP, but there's difference between having a phone conversation and someone actually sending you a letter or a document with it written down in it. That's all.
Mhm.
That's really what I'm looking for. And I think the town has already expressed their willingness to spend some money, and I don't think we're not asking for additional testing. We're just looking really to do that risk assessment in that letter. That's really what we're asking for.
Mhm.
And just to clarify, and so what would we need to move this forward to the town meeting? And I heard that it was delayed. Is there a date set for the town meeting? And because it was my understanding that the citizens have to vote to accept it, and which moves the select board to accept the property.
Yeah, I'm not sure of all the procedure as far as I know that we have to make a recommendation to the selectmen, but I think the town meeting's not till September, Leah. When have they postponed it to?
Jen, what do you know about that lately?
20th.
There's comments in the chat that say June 23rd.
Oh, June 23rd? Okay.
I
So,
think that's the election. I think the town meeting is June 20th.
okay. So and I'm sorry, I think I was thinking of another municipality that I'm working in. So what we have to do is make sure that as far as the articles and so forth that go at the town meeting, that we're still on target for that. And to be quite honest, I don't know what that date is, because it all got changed up when it got delayed.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I just didn't know.
go ahead, Deb.
I just didn't know if we have to have, I'm just trying to back up things. If it was to go on the town meeting for June 20th, what steps do we as a family need to have done, and you as a commission need to be done to back it all in, to make that all flow through for a June 20th town meeting?
I think that's a great question. I don't think we have a specific answer, but that's just something that Leah can help find out on that. I mean, I think my understanding is we have to make a recommendation to the selectman has to vote on it, and then a warrant will get put on the town meeting. And again, this is my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Go ahead.
Nope, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just going to add to it. We do have a standing article on the warrant right now to accept this property, or not to, it's just a, is a placeholder right now. It's going to be filled in. I think with you guys meeting May 5th, that's probably pretty crucial, and hoping that that would be the decision maker. What I heard from the assistant town administrator, maybe today, was that the select board would be signing the warrant on May 12th. So, if we were able to get that to the 5th, get them to that, to them for review. So we do have the placeholder for it to be, on the warrant, but it just obviously getting it before then in time. So I don't know if that time frame works for everybody, and if we have, again, more time, but if they're going to sign the warrant potentially on May 12th, I would assume we'd have to have it finalized before that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think May 5th, if we can, make a vote and a recommendation. I don't know if there's anyone else on the commission that has different thoughts. I mean, I'm hung up on getting the experts to put something in writing so we can all feel comfortable.
I would certainly prefer, this is Patrick, would certainly prefer that as well, Sandy.
I'm assuming that we could just ask the question to some sort of counsel for the town, just seeing, I'm just concerned about liability if we do accept this property, just to, I guess we could, and then work around it afterwards. That's just my concern.
No, I think it's a valid thing, and I think it's going to be an ongoing process. But I think it's something the town should do as part of their due diligence. I'm not sure if that's going to hold up getting an approval and getting it on the warrant. Again, the ultimate decisions. Yeah. But so I think we have kind of the next steps. And then I think we just need to continue to communicate. And then on the May 5th is to hopefully be able to close it out with the information that we have.
That makes sense to me. Are there any other comments from the commission or from the public?
No.
And I'd just like to say to the folks who are online listening in and making comments, thank you very much.
And thank you everyone from the family for being here as well to help address all of this.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to discuss it.
Yep. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And you didn't even have to drive all the way down here, right?
Anything else on that one, or should we move on to the next action item?
That's all I had for that one.
Okay. Well, great. Hopefully at our next meeting, we can keep it moving along. Was there anything else that people were here for in the action items that we should jump to next?
I don't believe so. We can just circle back to the remaining 4 action items and we'll be all set.
Okay. Any, does it matter what we jump to first?
You can do the minutes if you want.
That sounds like a nice easy one. So that sounds good.
I'll make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I shouldn't have jumped in I was going to make a motion to approve the meetings as written.
I second.
I actually read them, so.
Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. We have a partial certificate of compliance for 40 John Hill Drive. Is that right?
Just John Drive.
John Drive.
So this is one of the 38 condo units left at Lordvale Acres that needs a partial release from the order that encompasses the whole development. So it's just one condo unit. It's all done. Everything's stable. I recommend issuance.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we issue partial certificate of compliance for 40 John Drive.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Jonathan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Designate new rep for Lake Quinsigamond Commission.
This is the one we tabled from last time.
Right.
So they meet monthly, the fourth or last Wednesday of the month, usually for about an hour, 7 p.m. at night.
And have we had any volunteers?
All I can say, I'm already doing CPC, so I'm pretty booked.
I volunteered for that other one, the
Open space.
open space, and I do Grafton Youth Soccer, so I'm out.
So one of the questions
Yeah.
I had, Leah, is what if we don't have right now, I know Helen said that she couldn't do it now, but maybe later. What if we don't have someone to fill that position from our commission?
I think we can just fill someone in when we have them. We haven't been asked to pay dues since we haven't had someone on it. But we also don't find out what's going on.
Okay. And again, it's just I think we just all have time constraints.
Yeah.
Not to say that we shouldn't be on it or someone shouldn't represent it, but it's just it's a numbers game, I think.
What, Sandra or Patrick, what's the time commitment and when's the meeting? I missed that.
Leah, you said it was once a month?
Yeah, they meet once a month,
Yeah.
the fourth or last Wednesday of the month for about an hour, 7 to 8 at night.
I'll volunteer to do it.
Thank you. Welcome to the Conservation Commission. You didn't know you were going to have to do other things, did you?
Volunteer for this, volunteer for that. If it's an hour a month, that shouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
Do we need to do anything for that?
Nope.
Okay. Great.
So Leah, you'll send them that or something so you can connect me with them or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think all we have left is, unless I'm missing something here, reviewing and endorsing the 2020 Open Space and Recreation Plan.
Yeah, that's the last thing I have as well.
Has everyone had a chance to look at that?
So I've been kind of exposed through it through CPC and stuff, but I mean, I've looked at it in the past and I don't have any comments or and so forth.
Any other comments from the commission?
No, I flipped through it as well and I haven't read it cover to cover, but I didn't have any comments when I was looking at it.
Yeah, same for me. I did not read it word for word, but I don't have any particular comments either.
If you guys can make a motion to endorse it, I can pass that along to the committee.
Okay, I'll make a motion to endorse the 2020 Open Space and Recreation Plan.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And
We got another cat.
oh,
How does the cat vote?
I have dogs touching both of my legs very closely on both sides.
Yeah, but they don't jump up on the back of your chair during the middle of a meeting.
Which is still
maybe they
light.
do.
I was worried someone was going to walk by and then it would have been all kinds of a ruckus.
I believe there's just one thing left. Close the meeting.
Oh, I'll make a motion to close the hearing, a meeting.
I second.
Jonathan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Meeting adjourned.